Jordan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And I wanted to start with a promise that you made to your nanny to have one of Scotland's biggest landscaping businesses.
Yes.
I think we're pretty well on the way, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I think we're the biggest independent in Glasgow currently. And then we are moving. Everything is now moving in the right direction.
And what led to you making a promise like that?
Well, a couple of things. I don't know inside the young man of me was just trying to prove my nanny wrong. Leaving school at 15, just about to turn 16, she says, you need to go and get a real trade. In between that was a desire and a love to look after my mum and my nanny. So I decided at that point to prove her wrong, but then also prove her right that I was always going to look after her.
It had the two sides to it, the push and the pull.
Yes, that's exactly it is. And when you listen to a lot of stuff now, you're like, wow, that chemistry back then, the driving force, it was just, even still to this day, we had a meeting about an hour ago, and it was for scaling. Now it's even bigger. Now the conversation's bigger. To say to my mum, listen, we're going to scale across the UK, and it all started from a £5 grass cut.
Yeah, well, let's go back to those days. What was leading to you doing that?
So I was brought up with my mum and my nanny. My mum has severe mental health issues. Without a father figure, my beautiful wee nanny, she raised me. In a very young age, I realised I had to have very broad shoulders to look after my nanny if something happened, because my mum, through my whole childhood, my mum tried to kill herself. Luckily, she wasn't successful, but I realised, and I was probably about 14, I realised if she did kill herself and my nanny wasn't getting any younger, what I would do is I would either been put in a home, or I was then going to have to look after my nanny. You know, and my nanny was retired and my mum never had much, or if it was the other way around, my nanny passes away and I was left to look after my mum. So I realised at 14 I had to start making money. The only kind of exchange I had to do was understand to have money to pay for all my mum's bills and everything else that came with it. So started cutting grass, like, you know, it's like the perfect movie startup, chapping the neighbour's door, cutting grass and understanding, because everybody wants a gardener. And gone with the days where your gran or grandpa would work in a garden on a Saturday, Sunday. You know, that's totally changed now. The demographics of back then as well, everybody wanted to be in the garden but not do the garden. So I started cutting grass around about Rutherglen and Cambuslang, and built from there. That's
a huge amount for you to take on at a young age psychologically, and I guess the reason that we got on so well when we first met was just how open-minded you are, how developed you are from that sort of perspective and the sort of ideas you were sharing with me. But at that age, I guess you're not the same wise man that sits in front of me now, but you did recognise a need to be self-sustaining to some extent.
Absolutely. The why kind of never changed. It's still to this day. My nanny's no longer with us, but my mum, she still is. So the why to look after my mum and nanny has literally been like a laser beam through my whole building a business, career and everything. It's got now more strings to the bow. But it was at a very early age. It was very hard to understand what was going around me. I was very embarrassed about my childhood, not having kind of any father figure. We never had much money. We had the ugliest car in the school at the time. And again, you don't really think about that now, you know, but it really did affect me. And I was just like kind of...
Well, at school we want to fit in. I spoke to a rugby league player down south called Cruz Leeming, and he came from Swaziland, and he said he would do anything to have his hair not as long and curly as the other kids, so he would try and fit in. He would say like, oh no, I'm from England, I'm not from Swaziland, to fit in the same way at school. If you turn up and everyone, again, we were probably of an era, everyone had the Ben Sherman jumper, but you had the Primark or the George one, you would feel like out of the tribe.
That's it. Oh, absolutely. There is. I mean, again, and we can go on to speak to it, but you don't realise that they things actually make you as a young male in the later stages of life, you know, because they were kind of my driving forces there, because I'm going to say scarred, but really you learn
it had
to
an
live.
Impact, Jordan.
An impact, you know, and you learn to live on from that day and realise that it was just love that your nanny had, nothing else.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I think the words that you use there will carry a lot of, like, people can feel the emotion in that.
Yep.
Whereas I think when sometimes you think of that sort of situation, it can be painful, but you're recognising it in what it's led on to.
Absolutely. And again, that kind of reason why the burning desire to have a better life for my nanny and mum, and watching them going through kind of hell at the time there, looking after my mum, my nanny struggling with other stuff, she lost her kids. So it was just always that desire going, this is not the final destination. I'm a massive part of this story, and I'm going to change our destination.
Yeah, I respect that a lot. I know you got into MMA at a young age. What led to that?
So ended up so I was terrible at football, you know, and I had more anger. My mum left for I think the year you were going into high school. My mum kind of left for a year. She was drug abuse and whatnot, and I was a young guy with a lot of anger in my body. Terrible at football, and I got in an altercation on the pitch, and my PE teacher told me, "You're terrible at football anyway." And he says, so basically after the altercation, he says, you need to explain to me because I'm up for it and I need to know what's going on. And I kind of explained to him that my mum's been gone for the past year. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how long my nanny had left. I was just a confused young man. And he says, right, cool.
Full of hormones as well at that age.
That's it. No self-control. And I mean, it was literally, I could have punched through a brick wall, I think, at the time. But he says to me, Mr. Chaplin, he decided to say, listen, because you're so shit at football, you think you're a hard man, putting all the troubles aside at home, let's channel your energy. In which he got me into Stuart Lowe's Punisher Kickboxing Academy. So it was my first step. Little did I know, he had just left the Royal Marines. Not having a father figure was almost, I look back now and go, the timing was just perfect. This guy then took me straight into the gym. He just started his gym. So I had a lot of time and effort there and a lot of brilliant regimes to bring into a young guy that was just angry and frustrated with the world.
But still mouldable though, which I think is the important thing, because
Absolutely.
You can have that angry young man who won't listen to anyone. But sometimes if somebody who comes from the military, and you and I come from a background that we have a respect for the British military, and we kind of resonate with like what these guys stand for, it's the right message at the right time, and timing really does matter in these things.
Massively. As an understanding as well, although frustrated with the world, there's still the understanding in my head that I could have always, that this wasn't the final destination, and it was almost like the perfect stepping stone to turn that energy of frustration, hurt, anger into something.
A better outlet.
That's it, absolutely.
And fighting for a lot of young men is a great outlet, because while you get to express the aggression and the violence, it's done in a controlled setting.
Absolutely.
And we're recording a couple of days before release, but just about to release an episode with Nico Carrillo, who's done amazing in one championship, and he says that very much getting into Muay Thai saved him from gang life in Scotland.
Absolutely.
Because he was right involved in it. He got into a really pretty serious altercation that he spoke a little bit around the podcast, but he knows was like very much life or death. And he was like, thank goodness I had this outlet to pursue something that gave me discipline, gave me structure, and gave me a focus.
Absolutely. And like that, the transition on the first day of leaving the football, the football kind of life there. And again, I was never really that good, but I just done it. When I stepped into the fighting gym, there were guys 6 foot tall, 2 foot tall, absolute warriors that did not want to start a fight. They're so polite, everything there. And then when I look at the football and kind of all the drama that's created in and around that at that age, and still even junior fighting, everybody knows it in Glasgow, they talk about it, junior football for fighting. You walk into these gyms, they're so polite. These guys are warriors, you know. It's amazing.
Capable of virus, but choosing not to be.
Absolutely. Jordan Peterson says you want to become the warrior and then tone it down. Yep. Everything's so relatable. I think it's like you'd rather be a warrior in the garden than a gardener and
you're a gardener too.
That's it. I'm like, everything's so related to trees.
More leads, more meetings, more quotes, more proposals, and closing a higher percentage of those. That's exactly what it's time to unlock with my sales masterclass. I've distilled down over 15 years of sales experience across B2B and B2C into some actionable lessons which you can benefit from. Clients that I've worked with one-to-one over the last 6 to 18 months have had incredible results, and it's now time for me to share with you an easier way to work with me rather than on a one-to-one basis. To get involved, hit the link in the show notes or under this description wherever you're watching this to join today's waiting list, and there's even some free goodies in there for you while you wait for the course to go live. How did you develop then from cutting grass at 14, 15 to have some cash so that you felt like you could support yourself and your family should the time come, to starting up Glasgow Garden Maintenance? So
I built up clientele there to have enough cash there. I realised that I had a pot of money. You know, and I kind of started understanding a wee bit of money on a very small scale. You know, the guy upstairs talking about the way everything's just timing wise there. Left the army, done his course to become a tree surgeon, and at the time I was built up the gardens, but I realised I need to make more money if I want to try and buy a house. At that point, my mum came back on the scene, but the house was just chaos. It was, and I thought I need to get out here at the time. And I realised that he started the tree surgery business. So at that point, I phoned him and I said, Jimmy, is there any chance I could commit to do a couple of shifts? I never really knew what tree surgery was, and he's ended up he says no at first. And then I was like, okay, is it cool? But I have experience and I was fit, So if you have any shifts, let me know. Fast forward 5 days later, he's like, listen, could you commit for a couple of shifts? So by the time from 15 to 21, tree surgery is such a niche in the sense of the kind of what it is, etc. But he moved from working at a garage to running two teams in Glasgow and Edinburgh. Being so young, watching his business develop, by the time I got to 21, I was the youngest, most experienced tree surgeon in Glasgow. And it was just made indirectly, because I was just head down, focused here. And I realised that we're running like Scottish Water contracts, Bellway Homes, BAM Construction. And I was walking into kind of meetings for multi-million pound contracts.
With senior people, and you're seeing how they operate in that environment as well. And monkey see, monkey do.
That's
to
it.
some extent.
Literally. And then that's one of the best things with not having a father figure, again, flipping the mindset, is that you see every best attribute of every male and you go, oh, that's brilliant. I like how the way he done that, or I like the way he handled that.
I really like the way you've looked at that, Jordan. In the same way you maybe borrowed stuff from was it Stuart Lowe at the fighting gym? You borrowed stuff from your neighbour that ran the tree surgery business. Absolutely. You maybe borrowed stuff from the PE teacher in school, Mr. Chaplin.
That's it.
And taking their best attributes and forming the version of you that you want to be.
It's like the perfect avatar of what a male looks like, and I love the word being a gentleman. The idea of all these kind of, as a young guy, you go, I like the way he does this and etc. But a lot of these meetings I was walking into and I was handling myself well, and I also had the experience which somebody when they were 30 or 40. I had that. We done St James's Centre in Edinburgh. We were the first contractor to wipe out the trees in St James's Centre before it went on and getting signed on.
The huge shopping centre it is now.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. We were on there first, getting signed off, and I don't know how many millions it was worth. So we were in to clear the trees prior to the development, and I thought I could really just have a go at this myself. I had age was on my side. I had experience. I just never had cash.
Yeah, that was it. And between 15 and 21, you're doing so much growing up in work and outside of work.
Absolutely.
And one of the big lessons I learned on the podcast, probably about almost 2 years ago now, was with Daniel Priestley.
Yeah.
And he spoke about serving an entrepreneurial apprenticeship. Yes. And I love everything that Daniel does, and he's kind of blown up now with Diary of a CEO and stuff. And he was talking about, if you're not quite sure about how to start your own business, go and be the number two or as close to number two to an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what you're saying there. You were going into the meetings with him, with Scottish Water, with the big developer Bellway Homes, and having these conversations and being like, how does he hold himself? And you're still a young guy at that point, so you're not you shouldn't be in too much of a rush. I think nowadays that's with online people flexing what they've built at such a young age, it can be difficult to be like, I feel like I'm behind. But if you go and serve for a founder, absolutely, and learn, you can fast track that.
As and people are just, I do think Glasgow's amazing, and some the people around that was around me, that I'd done work for an old architect. Every Saturday I would go down to his house and do work in his house, or in his garden, sorry. But the best thing wasn't actually doing, I didn't even necessarily like the work, but every time for lunchtime we would sit down, and then we would sit down and he would talk about stocks and shares, running his business, and every single, and I'd be like, oh, this is amazing, taking all that information to allow me to develop into the business. It even was probably some of the stuff we use today, that's conversations that he had about running his business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are in that position, I'm sure the architect had a lovely house that you were working on, they're quite abundant with the knowledge they're willing to give away. I think we spoke about when we first met about mentorship and sometimes the barriers with coaching that can happen, but some of these guys will happily give you not the secret sauce, but as much information as they can. And you're sitting there thinking, I mean, if I was trying to find this knowledge online, I'd be paying a fortune for it.
Absolutely. The best advice I ever got was like having conversations. People just give me conversations, or do this and don't do that. The 1% gain and the loss to the conversations of the architect was that wee 1% kink of the chain years ago, that you don't even realise, and they're like, they don't want any money for it. It was just amazing free advice. Again, like Stuart, he was different kind of profession obviously there, but life advice fitness and kind of laugh in the face of adversity. I think it's a Royal Marine quote, to be fair. But it just, no matter what's happening in your life, laugh it off, let's get on with it. And if he's listening, he'll probably say, I don't think that's a total understanding, but it was my...
It's what you took from it,
that's
and that's important. These conversations with the architect, these conversations with people that are doing things that you can maybe aspire towards or take bits and pieces from, that's invaluable because you're also being paid along the way.
That's it, exactly. And then you're starting to build up cash, you're starting to understand it. You know, obviously when you start a business, that all goes to the wall, you know, because you have to throw more money at investment as well. But then you start having different conversations with people around investments, different levels. You know, I always think life's about levels to it. You know, and kind of the conversation with the architect when I was 15, 16, if I had it now, you know, it would be totally different. And probably stuff he'd still be able to give me advice, but I'd be understanding different things, you know. You
would have had more learning by that point in time. Whereas then it's very much the entry level stuff and you're taking bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces, just to get that 1% gain at that point to give us, to aim us back where we are here.
So by 21, you'd done a lot of reps, you'd got a skill set as a tree surgeon and you started your own business.
Yep, started my own business there and I realised that everybody was leaving school to be joiners, getting into Bitcoin, you know, all the kind of everything around, it was totally different. But everybody was buying houses with gardens, and the whole industry is predominantly older. You know, kind of dinosaurs in the industry. Nobody's coming into it because over here everyone's all techie, everything there. And I was like, we can capitalise on this. We got asked very early on just about all different sectors. So tree surgery, working in your back garden, removing trees, to be doing council clearances or housing clearances. And then you'd have the landscaping, you know. So you'd be in the back garden spending thousands on trying to get nice porcelain, brick walls, all that kind of stuff, and then the maintenance. So 9 times out of 10, there's somebody that does maybe tree surgery, landscaping, but nobody was doing an all-round service.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop for everything. Being so young, understand the market, but also having experience because I had connections already. But I was tried and tested. You know, I was like, it's a no-brainer. I think at A and B in your road, you know, you always get the choice of the fork in the road. I was like, you either take the gamble and go with your experience, you don't have any cash, you know, you're known in the industry, or you just keep riding along. They gave me that lovely fork in the road where I thought, let's just go for it.
Yeah, and you've gone for it, and I guess the journey along the way has not been entirely smooth sailing, because one of the things I need to ask you about is that, of course, the C-19 lockdown period was a very interesting time for everyone. But I know even the months before that were kind of a bit topsy-turvy for you as well.
That's it, exactly. So we started the business. Everybody were high demand. You start bringing in cash when you're not understanding you have no understanding of profit and loss, cash flow. You know, you get paid for a large landscaping job and you think, everything's got this, the whole world's changing. We'll buy a McLaren tomorrow, you know.
Buy a Porsche maybe.
Buy a Porsche, that's it, exactly.
At 21 as well, fair
21.
Play.
But then I think that's all related back to the little guy that was just trying to impress my nanny, you know.
Of course, we didn't have the nicest car in the playground, so... Now I will.
Now we will now. So then you start exactly like that. So the business started coming up. Buy the Porsche. I start to have the nicest car on the playground, you know, and then you think, no, we're untouchable. Prior to that, I think I was fighting on the, it must have been the February before it. The February before lockdown, give or take. Fighting at one of the shows in Crown Plaza, and my business partner at the time, everything was all hunky-dory. Decided to basically run out the business. Get an altercation with my cousin, and then from there, literally pack up and leave, stealing thousands off the business and everything else that comes with it. So we went from making it
growth mode. Some of the trophies that are related to that,
untouchable. You know, this is us. We're going here. It was a no-brainer.
Winning fights in the Crown Plaza.
That was it. Literally, it was like a movie. I came out, literally, hand was in the air, came out, and one of the boys, my cousin's business partner at the time, says that, listen, that your business partner was in an altercation. And I was like, that's weird, but I didn't really think too much of it. Allowed to know my whole life changed the minute I won that fight. But the loads of things to it, you know, but losing a business partner straight away and a best friend is always hard for anybody, regardless. And then realising that kind of half the things that was going on in the background. So fast forward, I think it was then a week later, we're trying to work because he'd done all the banking, all the insurances, we couldn't get hold of.
You have split duties, and then you understand what he's doing, and maybe sometimes you look behind the curtain and you're like, that's probably not how I would have done things.
That's it. Then you're like, you start to you have to uncover everything. Well, at the time we were still trying to develop the business. We had a lot of staff, and we would run week to week from getting the job paid, paying the boys, and then come the Sunday, you pay the suppliers. You know, you're going, right, it's a fresh week, you're still building. You know, although you were having the most money you'd ever seen come in, again, not understanding cash flow and profit, you thought were untouchable before it. Lost the business partner, and I thought my world would basically come crashing. And again, going back to the first point, I said to my nanny at that point, no, tell I that Boris Johnson came on the Friday and then decided to shut the world down. And I thought the week was harder. Before it, I thought that was us. It was the hardest week I've ever been through in business. Went from here to here, literally on a high from the fight, then taking control of the business and trying to navigate through that, to thinking, this is really hard, to then get told we're all shut down. You know, the world stopped moving. And then we had, I think, everything outstanding with the business was about £60,000.
Wow.
With it, at the time, we never had any capital in the bank. Everything was totally gone. And you're like, what the hell are we going to do now?
What do you do in the moment like that?
Oh God, it's hard, given obviously the history behind like my life being brought up by my mum and my nanny. I never had any business in my family, nor did I have anybody try to scale the business. People are in business but never scale it. There's two conversations you can have with different owners, is you sit with people that's obviously might have been in business and never want to grow. So the fact we scaled so quickly overnight, and then obviously everything shut, the door shut, that's like, who the hell do I turn to? That was, you had to quickly pull everything together. Div, what do you call it? He was one of the first conversations, and it's funny, obviously the business is now really developed there, but understanding data. We sat down at the old place down at Farm Cross we were at the time. He's like, we need to understand outgoings, ingoings here, and just understanding what's in front of us. We had a lot of clients that we had to do all the work for, but we had no capital at all.
To pay your staff, to pay for the equipment.
Pay for everything, pay for vans, even pay for the insurance as well. We never even had enough money to put fuel in the vans. So we ended up, what happened is when everything just crashed, then when we started getting the wheel turning again, on the Monday, I would then have like, say, £20 of fuel. Then the tree team would go out. They would get cash off a job. The second day, like, okay, right, we can put more money in the fuel in the vans. We lost everything and had to just literally understand the data and then realise, right, okay, we can still build this up incrementally, day by day. But to be honest with you, when I said to my nanny just after the week after it, I've lost everything, or lost my best pal, which felt like losing everything. And we're losing the business. Like, I was like, that's it, Nanny, we're done. I was like, I don't have the heart in it. We've lost thousands of pounds. Now we're losing it because of COVID. We can't work. And she's like, the first time in her life, honestly, she turned around and she says, I thought you were going to build Scotland's biggest company. And I'm like, oh, yeah, wee shit, you've got me to ransom here, But that's
so good. That's such a classic Scottish granny.
That's it. She's like, you told me you were going to, and I'm like, oh shit.
She's kept it back there the full time and then used it when it's most prevalent.
That's it. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. And again, that reason why, the driving force, everything kicked in. A part of me was feeling sorry, going through what was happening in my mindset. You're feeling sorry for yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
Cutting out what I think we spoke about, the chimp paradox, and different part of your brain that was emotional, the chimp, that believed that I was going to have a business partner and there was going to be no problems. Then I was like, okay, the minute my nanny said, the plan never changed, the goal never changes, the plan might change in between it, kicked in the logic side. And that's when, right, okay, we're going to have to go to town. Part of me is probably part of my brain's like, oh God, you need to work double as hard for less money over a longer period of time, but you're going to have to build the business, back up from scratch.
There was no way you were going to stop. You just needed the right words at the right time. And then, of course, with that comes the action and the plan.
Action, the plan, and then working through it. And again, life's about levels to it. And once you get the right conversations with the right people and put the right things in place, it actually becomes so much easier doing things that you thought was hard before.
Yeah. What were some of those steps though? Because COVID maybe took with one hand in terms of pausing you for a little bit, but maybe gave with the other because everyone was locked inside, but actually the weather was incredible, so we're all outside.
Absolutely. So my whole career, and again, even my nanny referring to me saying that I had to go and get a real trade. She then, and it's always been cutting grass or been working in the garden. It was never seen as it is. It was, and it wasn't the prettiest looking job. Fast forward the conversation with my nanny, and then I was like, we have to put this back into place. Everybody was stuck in the house, and like overnight we went from like bin men, you know, just a job that everybody just had to do. It wasn't that pretty, and everybody wanted us. It's like something that I've never seen before. The demand for our services overnight, perfect timing. And here was a selfish version of me the week before it, saying I was going to give up the ghost, and I don't have a business partner. We're losing thousands. It's like, and we have all this in front of it. A week later, everything changed overnight. Then we had to change the plan.
Yeah, you're able to get back out there, start servicing people's demand, which is obviously an all-time high. And cash was pretty flush at that point in time because there was furlough, there was bounce back loans, and people were wanting a nice space to sit.
Absolutely. And because people weren't going on holiday and they had so much, they were happy to just spend in their garden. And I would like to think there's not going to be another time like COVID, but the timing for us was just literally perfect. There was weeks, week to week, where it went the worst week to the best weeks. You know, after one of the first the first month sitting with the accountant at the time, that I think we ended up with after clearing everything off, we were up to about £40,000. Like, and I was that in shock and working so hard to develop it that they were sitting across from me and you, and the accountant's like, you're up to £40,000 this month, and I'm like, is that good? He's like, Jordan, you were like down and broke last month. He's like, that was it. The game was a bogey. But I was that shock. It was just head in the game, the reason why, and it just started putting so many logical things together, understanding the demand for a service and understanding an algorithm which we draw cash out to clients before we even done the work to create cash flow.
Not leaving yourself, yeah, exactly short, like 30-day payment terms.
That's it, exactly. So we had to quite quickly reverse it because there were always a need, regardless of what was going on with me personally. People still, I was trusted in my field. Then I was trusted in my field. I already had clients. What went on with me was a total emotional thing. I'm going to use that. There were obviously more strings to it. But at that time, it was like, okay, so that demand's here and they want me to service their demands. How do we then use their capital to then fund us? And from there, we just literally took 10% deposits, getting booked in with clients, allowed us for cash flow, moving on to another job. We could buy another van, we step another team in.
I've got a quote that I know you quite like. You don't have business problems, you have personal problems showing up in your business.
That's it. Love it, honestly. So, and one of the best things I ever said to me, again, there with that emotional side there, you know, that if you can control the one's true self and all the emotions and everything that goes through your head, you can be the best man, best businessman, best leader, and everything that you need to be. There's nothing, business is just an algorithm. There's more to it than that. But you put every single thing into the system, the business should do what it's meant to be.
What was that process like then, building back during this lockdown period? What were the inputs in terms of process?
So the first one was understanding cash flow. And still to this day, we have a 9 o'clock cash flow. And I think as well, asking yourself the questions like what went wrong first. We understood that cash flow is one of the main things that kills businesses. Obviously, apart from the obvious in profits, and that's not been a good business model. You know, so we had to go, right, okay, well, if that's the problem, so look the devil in the eyes. Let's see what the problem is. So we understand we have to monitor the cash flow on a day-to-day. After that, we could build up to a positive cash flow in order to make decisions based on the data of the business. From there, we built a sales algorithm, which was all just me, but I had to work out my timings of when I was servicing the client, maybe doing a bit of marketing, emailing clients, selling the business. We had to quickly section off three sections of the business, which was sales, service, and marketing. The way my head was wired, when you're trying to build something absolutely massive and you don't have any capital, and you don't have capital, you're against it, you know. And also cash flow, I was like, how do I separate, put everything, like compartmentalise everything? So we focused on the sales, and cash flow was the thing that drove us. In days where when I wasn't getting the sales, we'd market the business really well. And then when you market well, get the sales in, then you're servicing your clients. We had to quickly build up systems in the business that we still use to this day, even at scale, that we implemented from a very early age.
Yeah, I love that, and it's very precise, and I do think it's helpful to wear different hats at different times.
Yep.
And we spoke offline about the different things that I'm juggling as well, but I very much have like sales calling, podcast calling, sales coach calling, and I have to bring slightly different attributes to each one, albeit there's some congruent skills there, which is helpful, but there's different things that I embody at those different times to enable me to perform well, and it's the exact same with the 3 areas you spoke about there.
Absolutely. And as at the time, even to try and compartmentalise who we are right now, and in comparison to the Geordie that maybe needs to make decisions, strategic decisions, you know, is total different people. And that's a very good thing, you know, that you can switch on and off of that and make strategic decisions in comparison to having a more relaxed approach.
What are the things that you lean more naturally in? We were speaking very briefly about Myers-Briggs before we hit record as well, which I'm a big fan of, the personality types and understanding how we're wired, but what comes more naturally to you?
On the personality type, I think listening to people first. That's always, and I don't know if that is a personality type, but understanding what people are trying to communicate first, listening to what the story is, you know, rather than shouting down. And this is, you can use this for people who work for you, or you can use this from a clientele's. You know, what is the need for a client? What is the need for somebody that's working for me? What is the problem and the pain? You know, I can understand it and go, right, well, how are we going to, one, work out what's going on in their Myers-Briggs, you know, what's going on in their head, and then how do we adapt that to achieve the goal that we need to for the business and for personal.
Yeah, I think you've got a really good read of people, and I judged that just from one of our initial chats. And when you understand what you're good at, then you try and spend more time doing that within your business, because that's the highest leverage activity that Jordan as the owner can do versus, let's say, maybe somebody else you employ who's better at something else.
Absolutely. That is, and that's one of the things I think as well, fundamentally, right from the get-go, when I started to get momentum after we lost everything, building it back up, was that we had to employ people. I'm terrible at administration in organisation, but I was really good at just standing in front of clients and talking, you know, and building that up. Little did I know about Myers-Briggs. And then I used to think, why are they wired that way? Growing up with a mum with severe mental health issues, the brain is amazing, because I believe that she could never hide any of her emotions. If she woke up, she's sad. She's like, we're going down, and she's like, trigger herself. If it's too high, she's high as a kite. And I was always interested, like, what creates the kind of
the delta between the two.
That's it. The thinking there, and then you can translate that experience to going, wow, it's interesting turning up to a client. They're on whatever scale it is. Okay, what are you needing? Or if it's maybe somebody that's working for us, or if it's something there we need to understand, because I genuinely don't believe anybody goes out to be a bad person, you know. And I think understanding people was the thing that I was always good at, because I had to live with my mum, look after my mum, and understand what happened. That understanding that people is my thing, and everything else I need to almost pack around there, you know. And indirectly, that's probably how we've got so many staff now, because it's almost every single person's got their own mindset.
You were responsible for a lot of livelihoods during that period, and you are now. How did you handle that sort of responsibility? Taking into consideration my reason why, and always having broad shoulders, I think as well as being a male, and understanding that the decisions that I make had impact on others is exciting but scary, and it creates the right type of anxiety in order to drive me forward. But again, it was that transferring the right energy from the guy that was the young guy that was angry into the punch, and taking that energy of anxiety and worry about there and transferring that into, okay, I have all these people depending on me to make it, so we're going to have to head in this direction, and we're all going to have to act a certain way in order to develop and make sure nothing stops in our life. It was a hard time, you know. And we were literally, I think one of the wages was about £4,900, and that I had to borrow £20 off my mate to basically to pay for the week.
wages. So it was right to the wire, but we always managed to do it because I think the reason why never changed. We were always going in this direction. The plan was going to change in between it, but the goal was never going to change.
Yeah, a phrase I think you'll resonate with is the broadest shoulders carry the heaviest burden.
Yeah.
And you've done that from a young age. But when the pressure comes on, I think like a really good leader in a business should deal with all the external stuff that's coming down on top of you and almost build this umbrella over the staff so the staff can get on with their job as much as possible. Because the last thing they should really want, again, people are like, oh, you should be transparent with your staff, but equally, if your staff knew you had to borrow 20 quid to make the wage roll, that's not helpful.
No.
But what is helpful is that you're stressed about it, you're worried about it, but you go and find a solution, and then they're still fulfilling the jobs for the clients, getting the cash flow to come in. And I think when you get into situations where the staff are too in the day-to-day of maybe some of the external factors that are causing trouble, then that's when you have a bad culture.
Absolutely. And I think as well that and again, it's kind of talking about people that have business problems, got personal problems, you know. When my nanny, every day when I'd wake up, no matter any hardship, would always wake up with a smile on her face and always have a positive attitude. And likewise, my mum must say, even though severe mental health issues, that she would always have a brilliant attitude there, you know. And I think that they were kind of leading me as the kind of early stages, and I think I then seen that if you see anyone above you or anyone that that's supposed to be looking after you worry, stress, and freak out, it just literally chicanes down wherever it needs to go. So that was the one for, like you says, love that quote, that having the broadest shoulders. Because
it's like, I feel like you should always be encouraged to step up to the plate. And again, people are like, oh, positive masculine energy nowadays is an outdated concept. It's not.
Absolutely not.
As somebody who tries to lean into their masculinity positively, I feel like I'm happy to take on the responsibility because I can deal with it. I've got a pretty high stress threshold.
Absolutely.
I do a lot of things outside of the work that I do to enable me to deal with that stress. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine with it. And you notice it, like I've worked in 4 or 5 big corporate businesses across the years, and sometimes something bad will happen in work with like the supply chain for one of my customers, whatever. And I never really panic or lose the rag. And people are like so stressed. And I'm like, well, what we can do is this. And you're like, you're so rational. Why are you not getting upset? And I'm like, if I got upset or if I was upset, I wouldn't show you.
Nothing happens.
And I would come off the call and I would maybe effing blind to my brother or somebody that I trust.
That's it.
It's actually interesting. I've got an episode. I think this episode will come out first. A guy called George Perez, and he wrote a book called the Shut the Fuck Up Method.
Yes.
And he says that if you have a really big problem, you tell only one person, and they're like your trusted advisor. But if anyone else asks, like, Jordan, how's business? You say, yeah, all good. We're working. We're working well. Whereas you've maybe told somebody else, like, look, cash flow's really tight. I'm really worried about this. You only tell one person because otherwise it starts to manifest into everything if you're negative.
Everything you do, even if like somebody you walk into the office in the morning, how's things? Fantastic. Phone call, how's fantastic. Again, the correlation, understanding that people literally it draws the life out of you. Oh, how's things? Oh, so stressed and horrible. Cash flow is going terrible and whatnot. It literally sucks every bit of energy out of you in comparison. Yeah, fantastic, everything's good. Because I think everybody's got stuff to be grateful for. And at that time, but running a business, there is major problems that will pop up on a day. Professional earthquakes, sometimes every minute, every hour. But staying that positive mindset and saying that this too shall pass, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good anchor to come back to, isn't it? I know during that period you sold the Porsche and you ended up in a £500 Corsa. Were there any other kind of lifestyle changes you needed to make?
Absolutely. So at that time, having that burning desire of here's where we're still going, it doesn't matter, but then understanding cash flow and in capital, that I realised that when I sold my Porsche, went in a £500 Corsa, and then my house I stayed in it as well, I decided to sell that house and then move into a house there that I was planning just kind of having no mortgage and just kind of living with no fixed kind of overheads for me personally, because I wanted the business to develop. I didn't care how I looked or my personal life looked or kind of anything there. So I sold my house I was living in, loved that, amazing years in it, and then I decided to cut the whole ties on it, everything materialistic, you know.
I think sometimes that can happen when you're forced to and you realise what's important.
Yeah.
I fully believe that at some point you'll have another Porsche in the future, maybe an even nicer one, but it'll be in a position where you maybe you feel more comfortable having it, whereas at that stage you needed to get rid of that to really put the focus where it mattered. Absolutely.
And I think as well that my whole life I just had to be true to myself, you know. The guy who couldn't play football but thought he could fight had to turn up to be the fighter. The guy who talks about building Scotland's biggest gardening firm had to do the walking in it. If you've got no capital there to start with, they're like, well, you can't do that when you're driving a Porsche and sitting in a 3-bedroom house staying yourself. The maths of it doesn't math, you know. So you have to almost literally cut every tie. And you do the research, like the picture at Amazon and Apple, right, when everything was getting started, it's like, we're going to have to just start somewhere, cut all the overheads, and then we'll grow it from there.
I think we're actually fortunate to have examples like that we can see online now.
Absolutely.
A phrase we use in the show quite a lot is stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
So you quoted Jordan Peterson earlier. He's like a giant that I would stand on his shoulders, because I get a lot of information and insight from him, and I get access to it through a podcast, through YouTube, through a book, and I can learn from it. In the same way, you can look at Bezos starting up with Amazon and seeing what it looked like in the hustle and bustle and think, I'm going to embody that. Whereas if we don't have those role models, and you mentioned growing up, you didn't have those business mentors and people around you, you could at least look online to people to inspire you.
Absolutely. That is, and that we are so lucky to be in around kind of this era as well. I was
the
invited,
information age.
Oh, it's amazing, honestly. And again, I was invited up to the house. I can't kind of disclose with the house there, but the family started from nothing, and then they're now worth about 300 million. Started from nothing. Just exactly the same as us, but understanding it and then reading about the story, etc. You know, I'm like, wow, that is amazing, and it gives us so inspiring, because you hit your head off against the wall and you think, I'm doing this in my day job, then I'm jumping out here, and you're thinking, oh, when is this going to end? Well, the good thing is you can now search that up and see that at some point it will end, and there's going to be a better tomorrow at some point. And all the investment and time you put into it, will you reap the rewards?
Have you ever rubbed beef fat on your face? Sounds crazy, but that's exactly what I've been doing since January this year, when I decided to start using a much cleaner and safer moisturiser. I've been down the rabbit hole on hormone disruptors and all sorts of stuff that's in our environment that is not good for your natural hormones, especially your testosterone. I now have a filter for the tap water. I don't have fluoride in my toothpaste. I hardly eat any ultra processed foods, so it was only natural that I decided to look at what I was putting on my skin. After all, your skin is the biggest organ in your body and absorbs a hell of a lot. So in January I switched to No-Tox Towel Face Balm. It only has 4 ingredients, they're all natural, and there's no disruptors in there. Well, of course, my skin continues to look and be as good as it ever has, so you can benefit from that too. Hit the link in the show notes, notoxskincare.co, and use the code CALL15 for 15% off. I know post that lockdown period, you've gone from strength to strength. You've had some amazing awards like Best Tree Surgeon in Agricultural Business of the Year in 2013, and then of course the Scotland's Best Landscaping Company, which is kind of the validation we were looking for in a nice way last year.
Yeah, and we got nominated there for the Lanarkshire's Best Business Award, Best New Start or Best, I think it was Best Business. To get started for that, so South Lanarkshire, North Lanarkshire's Best Business as well, but it wasn't that Scotland's Best. And again, sometimes you have a feeling with these things there, and we got nominated Scotland's Best Landscaping Company. I'm like, to my nanny, I told you, I'm sitting talking to myself, you know. And it was almost like we already, not with the whole the whole Conor McGregor, like I already envisioned it and whatnot, but the journey that I knew we were going to have to embark on, like it was almost like, okay, this is a wee check, right? It's
a tick along the way to where we want to get towards, and we need those micro rewards and tick boxes to keep us going. Otherwise, like it can't just be the stick the whole time. We have to have a bit of the carrot.
Absolutely. And I think as well, there's one of the things we weigh up there, if there's, because I believe you can try something for 3 times and it will maybe work the 4th time, but if it starts becoming more of a problem than a good thing, it's just a hard balance, you know. It's like trying to weigh it up, but seeing a little nugget, a wee gold nugget every single time, you know, you can then, you go, right, we're on the right trajectory here moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. At such a young age, starting in business and growing it to where it is now, you must have learnt a lot about sales and how to generate new customers. What have been some of the biggest lessons on the way from that perspective?
So I think with sales as well, breaking it down, a lot of people have just for our industry, and understanding people and what they're actually wanting. We managed to scale the business up to 7 figures organically because we had time, we had clients, and that whole thing for servicing people trusted us and still do trust us. And I think the biggest thing is your reputation is everything. Especially if you're going in and being trusted in your field. I've got a house builder that's like, Jordan, if you started making water bottles tomorrow, you wouldn't give me a tenner to start a water bottle company. But in sales, for us, we're trusted in our field. Staying in our lane is really one of the the things here and been tried and tested there. For the marketing side of it, we were so grateful that we had time on our side because we managed to scale the business organically up to the 7 figures there.
What are some of the things that you've done from a marketing perspective that really helped?
Do you know, I think as well, I think we were at a perfect, for obviously we were at that event with Paul Richardson from Gymshark the other week, and I kind of talking to him as well, and I think, again, being very grateful for timing wise, because he's speaking about Gymshark, that it was obviously there were only 2 other businesses in the UK that went from nothing
to be a unicorn,
unicorn, that's it, up to $1 billion. And I was like, what separated you? Is like, if you're going to invest in a business, and he's like, timing was perfect for Facebook, you know, Instagram and social media. We got in very early on. We show everything that we do before and afters. Our reviews are massive there, and we were out there. By no means did we do it enough, you know, but it obviously does work some sense of getting out there, and we're so proud of what we do, and proud of the work that we do as well.
Paul Richardson's an interesting guy. I had him on the podcast back in 2023, and what's interesting is, of course, he grew Gymshark, but before that, he's now got Hera.
That's right.
He saved All Saints from administration.
That's right.
And he also had some big waste management businesses.
Yep.
And knowing about the nitty gritty of what he called a dirty business and then going into Gymshark, he was like, this is easy. We're selling like an aesthetic product that people are excited about. I've sold a product that people, like you say, that it's a service, and it just has to happen.
That's it. And understanding your own industry, again there, if somebody tries to sell water, I would struggle with it, but our industry is like, you understand what clients needs well, and you don't need to upsell them at all, you just need to give them a need. And again, gardening, not to say we're in the best industry constantly, but people love being outside. You go any hot day like today, you want to be outside. And what's beautiful about our sales things is that you're transforming a space, regardless if it's maintenance, tree cutting or landscaping. You're transforming a space in order for people to spend it and for them to live better.
Absolutely.
And that's magical.
Yeah, that's right. You're talking about the result, and it's funny. I wrote this down because I wanted to talk to you about it, but one of the first sales trainers I had was a guy called Andy Bounds, and he's famous for teaching an afters concept. Yeah. So people don't care about what you are, they care about what you cause.
Yeah.
So and he lists off all these examples, and I now deliver a very similar training. People don't want a newspaper, they want the news. People don't want a lawyer, they want to stay out of jail. And one of his examples is, people don't want a gardener, they want an aesthetics place to spend their time. Yeah. And when I was right, I was like, I need to tell Jordan about that. That's because you were saying there, people don't necessarily care that we're, they care to some extent, but we're Glasgow Garden Maintenance, we're Scotland's best landscaping company in 2024. We've got 9 vans based in Rutherglen. They're like, okay, cool. What do you cause when I work with you? Oh, we maintain your garden on a weekly or monthly basis for a cost of X, Y, or Z, so that you have a nice space to spend your time. And they're like, I now want to work with you.
Yes, that's it. And literally breaking it through, and you're like, wow, it's and I'm going to say sales is so simple, but it's not. But when you understand what the actual needs is, you know, it makes everybody's job easy. You know, even for now, we've got the kind of sales team as well. You're like, you don't have to be selling a rocket ship off to Mars. You know, they give people what they want. It's amazing.
Yeah. How do you keep the relationships between sales, delivery, and everyone aligned?
Oh, that's the hard thing. Understanding Myers-Briggs a little bit in there, but communication. You know, becoming the best leader that I need to be in order to communicate it, because the sales department is different from the servicing department. Being in Glasgow, having construction-based workers in comparison to sales, you know, it's total different environments, and then obviously the after sales as well there. So it's letting everybody understand we've got 3 different values. Honest, everybody needs to be honest right across the board. Reliable, turn up when we say we're going to turn up, and then professional at all times. Professional in how we go about stuff, but also delivering on the service that we need to. And they were all kind of come back off my nanny. She's like, never say you can do something you can't. And I'd be like, okay, so that was kind of the honest. Reliable. She used to have like kind of different clients that would phone her house phone. She's like, you better turn up on time, because I started to see the difference of tradesmen when they turn up, and sales calls. You turn up on the dot, totally changes everything. How many
perception and manners? Manners,
that's it, literally. And that then falls off in the back of professional. You know, always talk politely, you know, and again, the nice balance with my nanny always allowed me to talk politely. And the gyms we were in, and these guys were warriors, but talking
Warriors,
so
but
polite.
capable of being gentlemen as well. And
That's
that was
it.
a phrase you used earlier as well.
Absolutely.
I really like that, because in the last 4 years since I joined the business I'm at just now as a sales director, I've had to understand how much you need to bring everyone else on the journey with you. So while I'm sales director within the furniture firm, we've got stock, operations, product, customer service, design. I'm obviously going to be hyped up and excited if I close a big deal, but I also need to understand that that's going to put a stress in the stock guy to get it from the Far East in time. It's going to put a stress in the product guy to spec it in the right possible way. The ops team are a bit stressed because that development's got really hard access to it. So everyone needs to come on the journey with me. So the way that I talk in the sales meeting, when I tell the guys, yep, that's a 400 grand deal that's installing in September, we need to do this. When I go on the stock call with the guys, they're much more calmer. I have to bring my Excel spreadsheet and say it's going to be this quantity of chairs, the manufacturer's this, and I try and bring them on the journey in a different way. Absolutely. And I've had to mature over time to do that, because my natural inclination is, let's fucking go, we've just closed this deal, come on. But I talk about horses for courses in some of my sales training modules, and when I'm running with the sales guys, I'm on hard and fast ground. But when I'm with the stock team, or I'm with the kind of more administrative side, I need to lower it down. I need to be a bit more slow and steady.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, even for us, the beautiful thing that I believe everybody in our business right now are all a part of the journey and can see it. We started from a £5 grass cup to where we go. So we defied everybody's expectation where we're going to get to. So in the next 10 years...
So did you, Jordan. Like that's something that when
you.
I first met you, I was saying that to you as a mate. You're an absolute credit to your family and in terms of how you're switched on you are.
Honestly, I really appreciate it. And the thing is, it gives me an opportunity with all that happening to then sit in front of everybody in our team going, this shouldn't have happened. You know, if we all follow X, Y steps and everybody plays a part individually, we will all be in a different place. You know, and that's what is so exciting. Every single person in our business has got growth. It is literally uncapped wherever we're going across the UK.
Yeah, I think when people are bought into that as well, they'll, not that you want them to do work that's outside the scope or the hours they should do, but they're willing to maybe pull the extra wee shift, because on a Friday we've actually got to get this done. But guess what? You finish, come in later on the Monday, but guess what? By you doing this on the Friday, it's actually helped us achieve X or Y.
Exactly.
And one of the big reasons I think a lot of people are unfulfilled, and I do a solo podcast every 10 episodes where I get questions from the listeners on Instagram and my Patreon. And one of the questions quite often is like young guys feeling like lost in their career, not really feeling like, what do I do in my job that contributes to the overall company? Absolutely. And that's a dereliction of management's duty to get the buy-in from everyone. So it's quite funny. I think this might even be it's Alex Ferguson. He was talking about like the receptionist at Man United knew exactly the role that they had to play. Like you're the one that sets the scene for everyone that comes into this training ground. And she then stood up chest tall and said, welcome to Manchester United, welcome to Carrington, wherever it was. And that culturally comes from the top and goes all the way through. So in the same way, maybe the lady that cleans your office, you say to her, like, you're the one that makes this environment spick and spam so we can get our work done.
Absolutely. And it's like, honestly, I love to see the one for referencing Sir Alex Ferguson. I think everything's running a business is like running a good football team. And you look at Sir Alex Ferguson that walked in, and I think it was on one of his, what's the big centre back used to play from?
Ferdinand
was on a podcast, and that's exactly what he was saying. He's like, he had everybody dialed in, even the receptionist. And he's like, that for me was a telltale sign when you look at what he done with Man United and you go, okay, so how do we transfer that into our business? I'm like, we don't have capital. We don't have massive wages for everybody, you know, so we all need to be in this journey. Everybody needs dialed in. I know how to be professional, but everybody needs to be dialed in because we're all going that direction, and there's going to be bumps in the road, but this is so exciting. Again, like any good football team on that journey. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there somebody maybe calling the house asking for their garden done. Do you still work with Mr. Sheridan? I heard about that. Yes, that's it. Mr. Sheridan. He's ended up had a heart attack many years ago. Loved his garden, and he couldn't turn over his flower bed at the time, so because his heart problems and whatnot. So he then would phone me up every it would have been the start of the start of Easter, he would phone me up and I would go up and he would deweed all his flower beds and then I would go up and turn all the soil over for him. He'd give us like £20, whatever it was back then. And still, like this year, we still send up bodies up there. Still give them £20 every year. And do you know what, even this year, I just said to the boys, listen, just keep it for yourself. We literally just service a client that's been with us for well over about 14 years. 14
That's
years,
incredible, isn't
14 years there to get sorted. So it just goes to show you the level of servicing, not aside from profit, you know, servicing the people that always started, because they gave me a 1% kink in the chain years ago.
They were in your corner from the start, and you
Literally.
shouldn't ever forget that.
No, it's very hard as well, because when you scale a business, you have 7-figure conversations and 6-figure conversations, you know. So, but inside my head, my nanny's like, they're the people that started you, you know.
What's been some of the most exciting contracts you've worked on?
So we done City of Glasgow College. We were asked, Sir Robert McAlpine designed the full college up there, and they put a rooftop garden on it. We were asked to come in and replenish the full garden, and it was the 8th floor. It was like something that's still game when they've got the car park in the sky.
For non-Scottish listeners, they'll not know what that is,
No.
but we'll get there.
So Sir Robert McAlpine, he's built this amazing building on the 8th floor of the Glasgow College. We were in there to replenish that. Beautiful work. And we do a lot of stuff out with connecting Glasgow there. One of the ones was Historic Scotland contacted us to work on a burial site. So you have to get permission granted, all permission to basically work on top of this 4,000-year-old burial site up at Loch Lomond.
Amazing.
And basically cut the trees off it because 4,000 years ago there were somebody of great significance planted. Buried, sorry, not planted. The buried in this, so it was a great significance to Scotland, obviously through there, you know. But aside from that, we've done ones like we cleared trees underneath the Erskine Bridge, because years ago when they developed the Erskine Bridge, they put a gas pipe along over the top of it. Obviously, fast forward, health and safety right now says you can't have a gas pipe on there, so we got called in to remove the trees to allow them to go in all there, you know. So we have some weird and wonderful projects that we've worked on. I forget the name of it. It's filmed over at Cumbernauld, a couple of TV sets as well, where basically because the camera crew couldn't get the lighting in there.
So you had to go and clear the light?
Outlander.
Oh, yeah, I remember Outlander, yeah.
Outlander on Netflix as well. And then we were recently asked to price up for Scottish House of Parliament.
Oh, for Holyrood, yeah.
Holyrood there. So I got recognised. There were a minutes it took on Scottish House of Parliament for being a young entrepreneur starting in business, bringing on young guys, but kind of trouble background, and amongst that, we got asked to tender for the maintenance project at Scottish House of Parliament, and I thought, wow, getting an acknowledgement. If my Nanny was here, I thought, wow, it's in there for everybody to see there from it, and then further that, getting asked to I thought, started from a £5
What a journey we've been on.
Yeah, £5 grass cut to be looking at the roof of the Scottish House of Parliament to maintain the same, technically not the same bit of grass, but doing the exact same, staying in my lane.
Yeah, you seem very grateful, and it's great that you always rewind to that. Are there any exercises you do to keep this perspective you've got?
I think when you're building a business and you're in a personal side of it, if you live with anyone with mental health issues and you've got your own personal issues, you have to, like a magnet, drawn constantly to the positives. Doesn't mean disregard the negatives and be like not conscious.
You're not delusional,
enough.
But you tap into what matters.
That's it. Exactly. And I think as well that you have to, when you're scaling something, you're going to get problems every single day. And it's I don't know if it's Jordan Peterson or Tony Robbins kind of references that kind of you think you don't realise that the pains and problems can be one of your greatest. I think Tony Robbins says that you have to keep on riding your own story and the dragons and slay the dragons and become your own hero, and constantly look for the positives. And then once you slay with the dragons or any problems in life, you're then dealing with the next problem. But you have to have a positive attitude about it rather than being dull, and I've kind of butchered that, but
No, but
you
I know
get
exactly what you mean. So
Yeah.
along the way, the challenges that come, you're going to just move on to the next challenge and almost be pleased that you've overcome that one. And then guess what? We're back to work again.
you're going to get the same problem, because the thing is, my whole life's been chaos. So nothing really changed, even if I do 10 million, 1 million, or 100,000 or £1,000. Like, nothing really changed. My life's chaos. I'm very grateful for being here, the life I was given, to allow me to go and have the next phase of growth for my life.
Yeah. And we're all going in the right direction. And I think you can see that you feel like you're very aligned right now and you've done a lot of work to get to this point. And I know away from business, the quote that I shared was, you don't have business problems, you've got personal problems showing up. You do a lot of work on your personal development as well. And I think some of the phrases you brought to the fore probably show people that.
That's it. And I think as well, we're having problems at home, problems in the business as well, and talking about having the broad shoulders. God, if I had to wake up every morning and look at the negatives, the business would not develop. And that's that's for any business owner. You're going to wake up, you're going to have more bills, more cash flow, people not turn up and give the expectation of what you need them to. And then something's going to happen at home. And, it's like, the only way I could see it is I have to be the better man, to become the best version of myself.
If you're new to the podcast, make sure you've hit the subscribe or the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on, so I can keep getting fantastic guests just like this one. We spoke about, when we first met through David Stephen, who's been on the show as well, and a lot of listeners will enjoy that episode. We spoke about how sometimes the Glasgow mindset can be quite negative and limiting. How have you broken beyond that?
I think as well, straight away, and David's obviously, he spoke about it as well, that totally making sure the circle around you, it's that, again, the Tony Robbins, like, who's the 5 people around you? When I lost everything, it was almost like we cleared the closet out, we kind of, right, everything was gone. Who am I associating with and how am I building it forward? It was, and even still to this day, there's blinkers on of what I'm doing and who I'm hanging about with there, in order to become the best version of myself and not get dragged down with the Glasgow madness. We've seen it ourselves, we were out and you're drinking water and you're not going out creating chaos, and it's, so we weren't slagging each other for drinking water. It sounds like you're just going out and next day you're working, you're focused, you're driving the next thing that you're wanting to do with the clear mindset. So that, for me, it was understanding who was around me, and again, harnessing, not having a father figure. I go, he's actually quite good. He's in a journey, and I think for me as well, for me personally, there's a massive correlation with people who have made it and not associating with the madness in Glasgow, and not, it was very clear for me in a very young age. I'm like, well, he's always messing up
out and partying,
aye, and he's also not successful as that guy there. It might seem boring to the world, but actually he's the guy that's driving the Ferrari down the road.
Yeah, in the time to come, that those behaviours will compound into unlocking new things.
Absolutely. Staying in and for me as well, a massive leverage was the not going out and then spending time working the Saturdays, Sundays, working the late nights, and just staying away from the madness. There's a time and a place, and listen, there still is, when the right achievements have been made to the kind of, but that was a massive kind of game changer for me. Yeah.
How do you mark milestones now?
Well, for the business now we're in a beautiful place where we have KPIs, and it's really important that because now the conversations now far gone of we are the biggest, and obviously we're going to get the accolades there. So again, levels to life and kind of perception there. But for us, we've got a lot of KPIs and how we know we're going to hit them there. For me, on a personal level as well, it's understanding what is my goals. Because aside from all the business, all the madness and whatnot, what's the goals in my life, and then understanding, taking the time out of the business, taking that time to go, what do I want and who do I want to become? Yeah,
we're at a really cool point because you've just come back from the Better Man retreat in Marbella. Yep. I'd love to ask you, what have you learned from that experience?
Loads of things. I think for me, the boy, we're talking about breath work there. After my nanny passed away, there was a shield on my face, a shield covering my eyes, and I put my emotions and my nanny to the side and built the business, but the business was built on my nanny, and telling the story, and actually timing wise for having us on this as well, I really appreciate it, but its timing's perfect because I think for me it's telling the story of no matter how much hard times you've been through, even if it's not as rough as, you know, that kind of some of the stuff that I've spoke about, even if it to you feels like the world's closing down, you can always put one foot in front of the next and develop it, to develop yourself to become the better man. But for me, I think personally is kind of the self-development. Listen, my business is up now. I have the emotional intelligence to deal with my nanny, you know, that passed away, and tell a wee bit of her story like I'm doing today.
Yeah, and honouring her really nicely as well, because it's over 4 years that you lost your nanny. But I think if she could see where you're at and all the work that you've done, not just on the business but on yourself as well, then it's a journey that you've been on that from that side of things.
Absolutely. And I think Eddie Hearn touched on it, because he started the business with his dad, and he's like, could you imagine we just scale just for the sake of it? Me and my dad, it was his dad's business, I think, wasn't it? And he's like, and in my head, when we done a bit of breath work with the boy Chris, and it was like, I was fearless. I was very naive in what was in front of me, but I was fearless to just go and achieve what I want to achieve, and understanding, taking that time out to say, you can still be fearless, Jordan, to achieve anything you want in your life, and there's going to be hiccups.
Yeah.
Telling myself exactly what I'd tell anybody else, really.
Amazing. You mentioned breathwork. Are there any other tools that you think about that are regulars for you that really support you?
I think the breathwork there, I think training's got to be a part of it, you know, and at what capacity. I would love to be in the gym probably more than anything. As some of my mates will be like, there's no chance he's in the gym now. He's not got the boxer six pack now there, but having something to be out of, away from even sometimes the people that surround you, and away from the business, to totally just be in your own mindset and put yourself through your paces. I think that's just that's a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter if it's in a golf course, in a boxing ring, or running in the street, or walking in the street, because you don't need to be the fittest, but I think you have to have time away yourself.
And do you manage to build that in still?
Yeah, give or take. It's a bit more kind of right now, actually, the first time. I've always wanted to get up at 5 a.m. and try and get the training in there. So, and it's took me about 10 years to get here, you know, never really give up, but I'm now more consistent with training at kind of 5 over. It's only in the Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's better for me in a business sense. You're up, you get started. It's just, I think the young guy of me was like, why the hell would you want to wake up at 5 a.m?
But you understand what's necessary.
That's it, because the best version of me, because you don't have problems in your business, you know, I've got personal problems that's shown up in my business, and that starts with my health.
Of course, yeah, I'm a big believer that the mind follows the body.
Absolutely.
I've had a couple of neuroscientists on the podcast, one in particular, TJ Power, talks about dose, which is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins,
Yep.
and he gives loads of practical ways to deal with that. And so many of the ways to boost those hormones and support ourselves is through doing something with our body.
Yes.
And then guess what? Our mind feels better off the back of it.
100%. And again, seen it very first hand there with my mum. Been stuck in a house, not moving, no nutrition, stuck in a house, and with her own mind and thoughts. You know, that was in anybody in and around her feeling a wee bit down or whatever there, get out and walking will be the first catalyst to allow you to start feeling better. Forget the medicine, and I know I'm not medically trained there, but the first thing is getting out moving, because changing that for my mum was a massive leverage in order for her to be feeling better on her bad days.
Yeah, and I know you've done a lot of things for your mum in terms of the house and all the stuff like that as well that we've not even spoken about as well. But when it comes to that mental health side of things, you as a business owner need to be primed, because there, like you say, there's still so many mouths that are reliant on you to feed.
Absolutely, you know, and I can't be off of it, you know, and again, like the retreat there and stuff that you do in your own personal development, you have to be, I don't know, it's self. See, you almost have to be selfish for the greater good of everybody else. You know, taking that time, and I don't exactly practice what I preach every day, because to take that time out, because you end up giving more to the business than what you do yourself.
Yeah.
But in order to over the full eagle eye view of it, if you don't take the time out to go and focus on you, then the business just fails every time. Like you says, you have young guys come in with problems. You know, we had a young guy recently come in with us, kind of troubles in life, and he came working with us and hanging out with the wrong people, and kind of looking for somebody to look up to be honest with you. If I come in drunken in the morning, you know, my head's up my hoop with it, you know, it's kind of, that's not going to help him. And also, again, going to the guys who I looked at, and I've like, he's amazing. There's my North Star. There's where I'm going to. I think it's so important for me to be the best version of myself. And that's
well, you are a role model now as well. And that was one of the, I mentioned the solo podcast that I do. One of the maddest things was a long time listener to Stuart asked me, he was like, what does it feel like to have older people look up to you? And I was like, that feels... It feels weird, but like if I'm leading by example in brain body business, then it doesn't matter what age you are. If you can take something from that, and maybe I share an anecdote in the show, or I bring on a guest that you can get something from, then I'm more than happy to be looked up to in that sense. But you wear that, you take the responsibility seriously. Absolutely. And I try and embody that, because I think the last thing I would want to be is be like, oh, Colin, somebody looks up to you for like brain body business and I feel like I'm a fraud. Whereas as long as I'm doing the things that I said I'm going to do, then I feel content.
100%. That's it. And you just don't realise the people that is looking up to you, you know, and you inspire every single day. And I think as well, there's this quote, I can't come back to me, but if it's a shame basically for everybody else around you, if they look up to you for you to let them down because you inspire them as well, you've got a duty of care to be on the podcast, you know, asking people the right question, because you're giving them the value that they would never be able to get.
Yeah, that's
right.
You know,
and if you don't do it for whatever reason, you know, you have to stand up to be the best version of you for everybody else. Again, broader shoulders.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Bring on the burden.
Male, that's it. You know, and talking about the right masculinity kind of in there, which is exciting when you look at it like that.
Yeah, definitely. What are some of the sources you consume then that keep your mind so dialed in?
So when there's troubled times in when there's troubled times in the business, and where my cognitive ability starts to kind of play up there with it, one of the easiest thing for me is when I wake up when I'm driving into work, it's either Tony Robbins or Jordan Peterson, and it's literally, or before that, there's this listening to kind of sleep hypnotics to try and like listen. Let's retune the brain and listen to a lot of podcasts and around there. Getting dialed in to the right people is everything. David, they run a big business, you know. When you think everything's going wrong, and when you associate yourself with the right people, you have the conversation to go, mate. Like I had a conversation with another business owner when we're going through kind of turbulent growth, and I was like stressed in my box, nothing's going right. He's like, you must be doing something right then. And I'm like, what? And he's like, it's so right, you know, because nothing good becomes easy.
Yeah, we were chatting at length, and one of the reasons I was so keen for us to chat is you were so encouraging for me when I was talking about my sales coaching and what I wanted to achieve with it, and you were like, oh, by September next year we'll be doing this and this together, and I was laughing along, and I was talking about how everything was going with a friend that I really respect the other day that's again really successful, and I felt like I could rely on him, and he was like, you're always pushing really hard but you do look more tired than normal. And I said, that's true, I actually agree with you, but what a privilege it is to be exhausted by a challenge you chose yourself.
Exactly.
How good's that? Because I chose all of this. None of this is I mean, there's things that you do within the vacations that you like that aren't perfect, but it's all part of the greater challenge that I've decided to go for.
Absolutely. You're creating your story. And that's the main thing, that you have your own growth, you're going through what you're wanting to, and there's pains and problems that come with that every single day. But again, it's like flipping the mindset, because when a problem appears to you and you think, oh wow, even for me on days if we have major professional earthquakes, I always just say, you asked for this, Jordan. This is what you created, and this was bound to happen. Yeah,
we're both quote factories, but Steve Harvey has a quote, I cannot complain about what's on my plate when my goal was to eat.
Yes, that's it.
And that's absolutely the case. That's like, see if you got an email on Saturday morning about a job that's gone wrong, and maybe like it's going to cost you X thousand to fix, whatever. You're kind of like, well, see, during the start of lockdown 2020, I would have done anything to be dealing with a problem like this. Absolutely. Rather than facing the business liquidating.
Absolutely. And you can imagine that's even for when we're talking about how do you steer everybody in the right direction, even for a business, because business is so unforgiving. You have a good week last week, you can walk into Monday, whole things went to shit. You know, it's like, it's so unforgiving. And one of the main things is everybody being like, here's the journey we're on constantly, and remind ourselves that tomorrow's not given, but today everybody needs to fully optimise in it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quotes that I pulled from your Instagram, I promised you I'd do my research, was a man's success has a lot to do with the woman he chooses to have in his life. Yep. I know that shortly after your nanny passed away, you met your partner Ellis.
Yeah.
How important's that been for you?
A massive, and talk about the kind of 1% gain and everything. Their timing was just perfect. You know, Ellis done law at university, so very academic and working to everybody's best attributes. You know, Ellis was perfect timing on a personal level. You know, first she was just the perfect wee person in my life, and allowed me to build the business because I never had anything that was kind of going for me. I just had a vision in the conversation. I was merely the guy in the pub just saying I was going to achieve. I wasn't achieving there, and having somebody so grounded and around me. But even still to this day, Ellis is a massive factor for us to build the business. And like that quote is, it's the woman in your life and everybody around you is so important. You know, it's a massive even still to this day.
Yeah, I think a lot of content nowadays is recognising the importance of having the right women in your life, because there's definitely a trend for the whole Sigma male, do-it-yourself bro, and but we're still running through girls, and that was huge online for quite a long time. And again, I think much of Andrew Tate's content has had a positive impact, but then that side of things, you're kind of like, oh, I don't really know if I resonate with that, or I can understand that, because it's like, be disciplined in every area of your life apart from with women. Just do whatever you want to do. And it's a bit of a funny one, whereas I think there's been more of a return to traditional values where
Absolutely.
One woman, the right woman, build a family with her, do the right thing. And I think that's hopefully the pendulum swinging in the right direction.
Absolutely. As it's trying to get in there. And again, gentleman comes to mind, how everybody like kind of what they believe that is there. But for me, the gentleman is the warrior that turns up to work as hard, you know what I mean, but also is a king that can look after everybody. You know, and still you're the warrior and the king, but you can still love like a wee boy, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, it's having that balance. And having that balance as well is also good for your mental health, rather than being stuck in warrior mode and working hard or going in that
that's
direction.
the polarity, isn't it? That's the masculine and the feminine. And coming away from being masculine in your job all day, you would still be masculine in the household, but it's almost having that feminine energy around you too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well that as it's having that balance, and I think there's so many things online as well. For me personally, I've seen a lot of young guys don't know how to be guys anymore. They are either one side of the pendulum, you know, and they're so confused that what to do with their life, how to act, how to be, you know. And it's hard because there's so much things out there.
I think that's where so many of the different male role models that you've picked up along the way have shaped you into the sort of gentleman that you've tried to embody, and you've picked and chosen the bits and pieces that resonate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope so, I should say, sorry. And one of the
let's use strong language. You feel like you have.
Yeah, I feel like I have, exactly. That's it. And all the affirmations there, they all account to everything as well, obviously.
We spoke about posture when we were first chatting as well.
That's it.
And that's massive for me. And people maybe say like, oh, you carry yourself really well. And I think, well, I've got to. Why not? Like, and if I do, then that permeates everything else.
Interesting. And the one for Tony Robbins, when he talks about the Superman breathing in and like the 10 breaths. When you ask me the questions, obviously, what's some of the things we're talking about breath work there? But I think Tony Robbins says, I mean, I might butcher it, but he's like, you put your shoulders back, you stand in the position, and it's like take 10 breaths, you know, and it allows for the dopamine or whatever else. I don't know if you've seen that one there.
No, but I completely resonate with what you're saying.
It is, and it's like even before big meetings or whatever, I'll try and I'll find it for you. But he stands up and he's like, shoulders back, take your 10 breaths in, and all the kind of endorphins that it releases to the body allows you to go and believe what you're going to go and try and achieve, step into whatever room or whatever environment and achieve it as an alpha male. Yeah,
your recall from the likes of Tony Robbins, John Peterson is really, really good. And it's interesting you say that you listen to that in the car or the van on the way to work, because at that time in the morning we're in beta because we've just woken up, and that's when we were the most suggested to take stuff on. And that's why when I've had the neuroscientists like TDG Power, he's like, boys, stay off social media, TikTok and Instagram at that time in the morning, stay off your WhatsApp. You can deal with them once you've maybe served yourself first, which is some sort of content that's going to inspire you, make you feel great. So I do that in my morning walk every morning. I've got something in that either it's a guest that I'm researching that I'm going to come on, or it's a topic that I'm interested that I want to level up on.
Love it, honestly, because the boy Mark Reed was speaking about yesterday, about there's no problems in your business, personal problems. He made a video that I'd watch at 5. I was supposed to watch at 5. I said, I've only really started waking up at the 5 there, but whenever I did wake up, and it would be a song that was correlated to something for me to believe in growth, for me, it was the Tyson Fury song. It's like, because when he gets knocked down, he's back up again. And you have videos implemented on that you watch first thing.
You were showing this to Mackenzie, and Mackenzie's been on the show, and he's big on visualization. In fact,
That's right.
He was showing us the screenshot.
Yeah.
In 2020, at the end of May, he said, "I will buy a Lamborghini soon," Mackenzie Haldane.
Absolutely.
And then 5 years later, on the 1st of June, because the car was delayed, he got the green Lambo.
Yes.
And people can disregard those things, but I'm around a lot of people that use those things and
Absolutely.
lean into them. And as long as you do the action that leads to it, then we're going to end up in a good spot.
That's it. That's assault, and you know that is. It's like doing the action of it, not just wishing to win the lottery, not putting on a lottery ticket. You know, and for me again, that visualization every morning, it was kind of okay, very good, but I embodied it. And one of the things I had was mortgage free. You know, and I never had anything. I never had any. Well, my mum never owned a house. You know, it's kind of we never had anything like that. Watching this on it was one part was being mortgage free. The reason behind being mortgage free is because I didn't want to have any bills, because I was adverse to debt and of losing stuff because of debt, etc. So I had a kind of reason why behind it. And fast forward me selling the house to try and have no overheads. I made enough money in the first house and then bought the second one. I was mortgage free, you know, and there was no relation to, because if you asked the 15-year-old me, would you be mortgage free at 22 or whatever it was, it's like, no, not a chance. You know, it wouldn't have made sense. But watching this video every morning, and there's a couple other things that's happened in that video, that it's just like visualization there that has been, it's not the only part, but it was a starting block.
It primed the mind to get to where you want to get to. One of the big things that I've been doing recently is envisaging what it will be like to go all into the coaching side of things, and the kind of guy I need to be to get that place. And when I first started the podcast, I started during lockdown.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were the Zoom podcasts, and it was going well. About a year and a half in, studios were opening back up again. I had to think about and close my eyes. What do I want the podcast to look like? How do I want my shows to sound? What do I want the studios to look like? And that sounds really corny to a lot of people, but before it was a top 1% podcast in the world, and all the funny highlights we've got, and 655 star ratings on Spotify, all the cool milestones I'm really proud of. I had to act like it was there already.
That's it.
And just behave in alignment with that over and over and over again. Whereas if I held up that vision and I didn't match it with actions and habits and routines, I was delusional. And if anything, I'm not delusional. I'm very rational.
Exactly. And even if you look at even reverse engineer it, if you're around somebody who has any trades business and they're like, well, I don't want to scale, and I never want to employ people, and I'm just kind of happy where I am, they will never achieve the greater things that the greater things that anyone's trying to achieve, you know. Whereas the person who's going, I am going to employ people, I am going to achieve more, and I'm going to decide to be the better man every single day. You know, the correlation, the vibration.
Lots of things to do.
That is the vibration match, you know.
One of the last questions I want to ask you, Jordan, is the last 5 years have been pretty transformative. If we think back to that lockdown period, what would have to happen in the next 5 years for you to feel like they've been a success?
So we definitely scale across the UK. We scale across the UK, and we've got different depots across the UK. From there, we have got a business model that's to have about 100 staff over there. So and again, one of the reasons why is we want to provide jobs for people, for them to live a happy and healthy life. You know, and that's the buzz. Could you imagine the business? My nanny looked after me. I then in return started a business to look after them. But in return now, we start a business from a £5 grass cut to employ 100 people over the UK and give them a better life. I think that forget about the grass cuts, forget about laying slabs. That's just, I love that. And it gives me so much excitement in my nanny's legacy that she went through hard work to create something in me that would then go on to do that.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Jordan. From a personal perspective, there's anything you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Personal achievements, I think that, so the Ellis, she's pregnant, you know, and although all these business accolades and all that, I think all we can be is good people and loving there. You know, I think I want to be the best father to the wee one, you know, that's it. I think that's the main thing, and create a happy, healthy household. in and around that, you know. That's my main objective, so that she wakes up and she's got a smile on her face and she's grateful that I'm her father, and obviously be a good boyfriend and role model to the world.
Yeah, amazing. Really cool note for us to wrap up on. If people want to continue the conversation with you and the business, where should they head towards?
So on social medias, it's Glasgow Garden Maintenance. For me, on Instagram or LinkedIn is Jordan Grant. On Instagram is Jordan Grant 25, and you can follow us.
Amazing. All three will be linked in the show notes. Thank you to you, Jordan.
Amazing.
And thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you again very, very soon.